What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Dimmer, the last bastion of truth in the music industry. I hope everybody's been checking out the weekly news roundups that I've been putting out. They've been really fun. But welcome back to one of my favorite parts of doing this whole thing, which are the artist interviews, where we're interviewing musicians and industry folks from around the country and kind of trying to gain some insight into their lives, maybe grabbing some stories that you wouldn't hear on other traditional forms of media, and just kind of seeing what musicians and industry folks are up to in this crazy musical industrial world, right? It's really crazy the last year or two. So I'm super stoked today to be joined by Rob Compa. What's going on, man? How are you today?
Hey, I'm great. How you doing? It's good to see you.
I'm doing awesome. It's great to see you. Rob is a session and touring guitarist. Many of you probably already know if you're tuning in, but for those that don't, most people probably know you because you spent the last decade rocking the entire country with a band called Dopapod. And
that's correct.
And I would say that that really took up a lot of your time. Dopapod, I'm at a loss for words sometimes when I talk about this band, because one of the most special bands to me, they're one of the first bands that I saw in college that blew my mind. Even before you were in it, Rob, I saw Michelangelo and Eli doing their thing at General Clinton Pub.
Wow.
And they were, and you know, Eli
Shit.
and Tom Baggett were like the first people that I was working with to book. You guys were one of the first people I ever booked for the Black Oak. And I really cut my teeth on kind of dealing with that organization, that young organization, and watching you guys like froth and bubble over bigger than I can imagine, watch you guys kind of take off. So, and also thank God you were on stage for a lot of those nights, because you would have probably seen me at some of my worst points, blacked out points too. But I partied so hard.
I have them at the Black Oak and General Clinton's as well, so you don't have to feel bad.
Yes, that's very easy.
Just what you did at those places.
Exactly, exactly. I still remember, I mean, one of my favorite stories from you guys, and again, you might have been on stage and not known this, but it's towards the end of a sold-out Dopapod show at the Black Oak, and my boss came up to me and told me that we had to stop because he seriously thought that the floor was in danger of caving in. And we like the whole thing was like bouncing up, and I was like, man, I was like, they have like one more song to go. I think we're good. And if it does happen, wouldn't that just be the most fucking awesome thing you ever heard of in your life? But obviously he was like, no, he was the boss. But I was 22 and I was like, let's just see. I think we'll be okay. And of course, everything was okay. It's an amazing show. And I've also seen you guys play all night sets at Heady Fest. I saw you guys come out of the rain, take everything down from a stage, build it back up inside, and play all night long for a crowd.
It snowed at that one. It was May,
did.
I think. They used to have that in May, didn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And it snowed. And like blew
the
outdoor tent over, so we had to play inside.
Exactly. Yeah. I remember Consider the Source playing, and I just actually interviewed Jeff Mann a couple weeks ago. We were talking about you, and yeah, it's because I know you guys are close. And Consider the Source was playing, and that tent was like blowing. It was crazy. It was like the wind of God. Like Gabe was soloing, and the thing was just like. So we had, at a certain point, it was just like, it was too much. But we brought it in, and you guys saved the show. I'm sure, you know, that's another reason why I respect you guys so much. I love you guys so much, because you just came out and did something like that. You were young bucks. It was awesome. But to watch
so
you guys
easy
play
when you're
like
that young, because you want to play so bad, you know?
Sure, totally.
Yeah, like I mean, I want to play more than ever right now. You know, I think we all do. But
I'm sure. Well, can you tell me a little bit? I mean, I don't really know that part of the story. Can you just tell me a little bit about how you met Eli and how you got into the band?
Sure. Yeah, you know, funnily enough, the 13-year anniversary of that was like just this week. It was like a couple of days ago. But I knew Eli at Berkeley. We all went to Berkeley, and I guess this is kind of a fun story, but it seems a little long-winded at first. So I was in this like ensemble in college at Berkeley that was like, it was a hard ensemble to get into. It was like really cool that I even got in it, and it was called like 21st Century Groove Ensemble, which just like that right away, it just sounded so cool to me. And then I got in it, and I was like, so like, you know, like I'm like 19 or something at the time, and like going through some stuff as teenagers do, and I kind of just didn't have the focus to do that ensemble. It was all these like crazy Mahavishnu orchestra tunes and stuff. It would have been good for me to do it, but I went to like a couple of the classes for it and the guy gave us all these charts, and he was like, learn these songs, and they're like the hardest songs ever. And I kind of was like, man, I don't need this. I'm going to take the easiest ensemble that I can find, So I took a reggae ensemble. Like I was like, yeah. And ironically, it was not easy at all. It was just hard in a different way.
Totally.
Yeah.
If you're really trying to do reggae the right way, it's not easy.
Oh yeah, and our teacher was from Jamaica and was like such a sick musician. So if you like, if I was chanking and I played like on a downbeat, like on beat 1 or 3, he would like from across the room he would give you this funny look. But anyways, it's kind of funny. Like I did that out of laziness, but what it led to is just so interesting because Eli was the keyboardist in that, and that's how I met him.
I see. Okay.
And we didn't even know each other's name yet. I think I knew who he was because my roommate was. I remember he like came home to our dorm room one night and he was like, "Man, I heard this keyboardist tonight, and I really think you ought to play with this guy. Like, I feel like you guys would do something cool together." And I didn't even know him yet, but I knew who he was because of that. Like I was like, "Oh, Eli, I know who you're talking about. He's awesome." Like I'd seen him play a basement party before. I don't think he knew who I was yet though. And then we did that reggae thing, and we just got to know each other over time. Walking to like another class one day, and I ran into Eli on the street, and he was like, "Oh, you're Rob, right? Like you play in my reggae ensemble." And I was like, "Yeah, man." And he was like, "You're a great guitar player, man." I was like, "Oh, thanks, man." And I instead of going to that class, I just hung out with Eli for like 2 hours.
It was such in that reggae ensemble that you guys didn't know each other. Like you guys are not like, "Hey, like I'm over here playing guitar. I'm Rob."
No, we didn't even like talk. He was just the keyboard player on the other side of the room, And then we started doing real reggae gigs. Like we played this residency where we were basically the backing band, and like reggae like MCs could just come up and sing and do whatever they wanted while we just like played reggae grooves. And he like gave me a ride home one night, and we were both kind of like, "Man, I'm kind of tired of reggae right now," and we both kind of agreed on that. And he's like, "I have this other band where we can play whatever we want, and it's called Dopapod, and it's just 2 of us right now. Like, you should come sit in next week. Like, you can we don't care what you play. You can play the weirdest stuff you want." And so, yeah, like a week later, I came and sat in with him and Mikey at this little tiny bar. It was March 6th, 2008.
Wow.
And this little bar called The Draft in Alston. And I didn't know any of the songs. The first song we ever played was Chank by John Scofield.
Sure.
And the only Dopapod song that's still in rotation that I remember playing that night is this song called Freight Train. You know Freight Train?
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm on
the live album. I introduced Freight Train on I Saw
That's
Live
you?
Evil Was I. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. That's
wow. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, that's me at
so cool.
I think that's me at Live Live Music Festival. Although that Freight Train is not from the performance. Yeah, you guys like bust into something else, but
that's
they used my voice for that, which is
Yeah, that was when Heady Fest like it changed names and was in a different location.
Yeah, it was when I joined up with Trevor basically, and then I was kind of that was the one I was more Heady Fest I was going to basically and watching you guys, and then we turned it into Live Live for a year or two, and I was kind of on the board for that.
That was such like early, like just kids having the time of their lives. Like
yes, it was.
We stayed up all night just hanging in a field, and I remember like there were this truck with like beer taps. But after a while, nobody was monitoring them anymore.
Oh, I think the audience was monitoring them from the hours of 10 p.m. to 4 a.m.
by like 7 in the morning, we were just.
Yeah, I remember that too.
21-year-old stuff,
It was so fun. It was so fun. It was nice.
Without further delay, I'd like to welcome home some of our best friends. Everybody, please give it up for Dopapod.
Chuck. I get like that part is hazy and far away.
Yes, but that first show where I just sat in, Chuck sat in too.
Really?
Yeah, on Freight Train, and I didn't say one word. We didn't know each other at all, and I remember like Chuck like played and then just kind of like stormed off drunk. Like he had this little practice amp that he had brought with him, so I didn't even get to meet him or anything. I was just like, oh yeah, that dude played bass. You know?
Do you remember feeling any sort of Did you think that there would be anything, or was it
Yes.
like, oh, you did? Okay. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. And then it kind of you probably know this feeling where you have like chemistry with a band and it's just amazing, and then you spend the next like 6 months trying to get that chemistry back again because you've built up kind of naive expectations about how good it can possibly be.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the initial one was like this burst of like, this is perfect, and then I think it took a while to like stop expecting it to be that every single time.
Mm-hmm.
And the less expectations we had, that slowly but surely, and the more songs we wrote and the more we just played together, it just it became more and more comfortable. I remember like the real time was when I really was like, wow, this is something. Is Eli invited me over to his house to just like rehearse with him and Mikey, and we just had like a big jam in the beginning that was like still exactly like what Eli and I do now, where we kind of like, we can sort of both sort of kind of solo at the same time, and it works somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And right, that was like the third time we played together, and we were doing it even then. I think it took until we were comfortable enough to do it at shows like that, where we didn't like. I think we were always able to do it to some degree. We're probably better at it now, I hope. But we could always sort of do that thing when no one was looking.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think we were a little tentative at shows for quite a while, until we stopped really like caring what the audience thought so much and just did whatever we thought was good.
It's mind blowing because you guys seem very, very polished to me. So when that feeling wears off, that euphoric feeling of like everything's gonna go right every single time we play, were you guys rehearsing? I mean, it's pretty athletic music. There's a lot of improvisation in it. But even in the improvisation, I would call it pretty athletic music. Are you guys rehearsing a lot of this stuff? Are you working it out on the road? I mean, obviously, you had a lot of time on the road to work it out.
Do you mean the improvisation or the writing kind of side of things?
Well, I guess all of it. It all seems very, very polished. I guess the writing. I guess the writing side of things. I would imagine the improvisation is going to come as it comes. But
we kind of did. We didn't really actively work on the improvisation as much as I think some people might think.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've had students ask me about it before, and I was like, I hate to break it to you, but we kind of just went for it,
Right. But it's polished, and you guys know, I think you guys not only were you all, or well, I don't know, were all of you in Berkeley? Was Chuck in Berkeley too? Mm-hmm. So you guys understand the language, and then obviously playing together for so long, so you have that platform to get after it.
Anytime with that, if there was rehearsal time, like it was pretty steadfastly dedicated to writing because there was so little time to write, and writing just takes so long.
And is everybody collaboratively writing? Is Eli bringing stuff? Are you bringing stuff?
He's usually the first guy to bring an idea.
Mm-hmm.
I have more than I used to. We're like, but once he brings in that idea, it's rare that it's like a finished tune. Like there'll be like, so like, just the littlest thing could have been someone else's idea, or an entire section or something, or it'll be like, rather than somebody comes up with an A, someone comes up with a B section, someone comes up with a weird little riff to connect two sections. Rather than that, it could also be like, it was Eli's. This was relatively often was Eli. Eli would write music, and I'd write lyrics to the music too.
Gotcha. And
but there was no, it wasn't. It wasn't like Nashville where they have a hit making formula.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? if it was, I mean, we'd be billionaires right now. But
well, I'm wondering. I also want to talk about, just quickly. I want to diverge for a second, because that writing towards your new album, your solo album, and it's because listening to you, first of all, I really like a lot of the stuff on this solo album, and
Thanks,
and
man.
I love when like a band member comes out with their own stuff, because you get the real perspective from that person. You know, it's like it's not the four people, it's very much you.
Yeah.
And there's songs about like the music industry, the title track, right?
Yeah.
That kind of, and or even the opening what's the opening track called too, just about like
Oh,
picking
better
up your
late than
guitar. It's
never.
better late than never, and like searching them out.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's very you. And but I
Thanks,
also
man.
noticed that some of those chord progressions are, I don't know which came first, the chicken or the egg. Like if Dopapod was giving you some of those, but I hear some of those, but it could be because of your writing from Dopapod, but I hear some of the same kind of these chord progressions.
Feeling good feels better when you remember feeling lesser. So let's let off all the pressure for a while. I'm gaining sanity, but losing my mind. So, I mean, yeah, for the chord progressions and some of the musical ideas on Same Damn Thing, it had to have. I've just been playing with those guys for too long for it to not have made a difference.
Right. It's not
I
like an
didn't-
average chord progression. It goes to its very own thing, and it feels a little bit like
Oh,
Dopapod, and I like that.
thanks.
It's comfy coming from you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't. I have trouble writing a song that's just got like 4 chords in it, and I wish I did that more.
Mm.
Like a habit I tend to fall into is that the chorus will be in a different key than the verse.
Mm-hmm.
Where that comes from, I think, has a lot to do with that. I love Danny Elfman a lot, and like
Okay.
film,
Mm-hmm.
like soundtrack music,
Yeah.
because
That's the Simpsons musical
Simpsons, but
director.
especially what he did for Nightmare Before Christmas.
And
A
Nightmare Before
lot of the
Christmas.
songs in that, there's really only like 2 or 3 sections, like a pop song, but you never get bored because every verse and every chorus is in a different key, but he gets there so smoothly that you don't even tell he's changing. You can't tell he's changing keys.
Totally.
It's not like a half step modulation in like My Heart Will Go On by Celine Dion, where it's like dramatic and really obvious.
Right.
He
Right.
modulates in a way where you aren't even aware it's happening. All you know is that you're not bored.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
I kind of try to do that. I don't know if I succeed or anything, but
I think you do. I think you can definitely
thanks, man.
I can just tell you're just listening to it passively, like your ear goes there. It's something
Oh,
that I
thanks,
really
man.
enjoy. I don't know if you hear this in like Derek and Susan tunes, the way they write a blues tune, but they kind of have like I don't know if you listen to them, but there'll be a chord or two in there that's just, I don't know, very
Of
Derek and
course.
Susan, and they keep that formula, and so kind of building off that sound.
Yeah, like it, and yes, and I love which they're masters at, is like taking something that could just be a 12-bar blues, but they inject other things into it so
Totally.
that it's still like the bones of it are a 12-bar blues, like, but they'll put like really special chords within that 12-bar length of time. Like there's
Totally.
still a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord in there, and it's 12 bars long, but there's all this other stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when they do a blues, and then of course they completely shatter the idea of blues and write these amazing, like almost pop tunes, I guess, but with like just like all the soul in the world. Yeah, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Have you
Yeah.
seen any of their fireside sessions that they've been putting out the last couple weeks?
I
Or any
I
of the
saw
clips?
like I just saw like a little bit of one of them. Sometimes it's a little, it can be hard for me to watch some of that stuff because it makes me miss live music more.
That's
Do you
interesting.
know what I mean? As much as I like, I love seeing music and everything. Sometimes um sometimes it makes me like just chomp at the bit to
Wow.
want to see a real show or
Totally.
play a real show, you know. But I watched a little bit of that one. I saw one where it was just like the core rhythm section, like it was just Derek and Susan and a drummer and bass player.
I thought that
awesome.
was amazing. That's the way they did episode 1, and I thought that was kind of a fitting
I
tribute
think that was
to
it. Did they start with Statesboro in it?
Yes,
Right?
exactly. And they
Yeah.
left no key, the kind of thing they kind of left your imagination to hear Kofi in that first episode in there. I thought that was very
Oh,
nice of,
that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they didn't say that, but it seemed like that was kind of the what they were going for, like
It's
holding that
evident.
space for Kofi for the first episode.
Dude, they played a bunch. They still toured for like a good year or so, and even with that, like after COVID had passed,
Yeah, and
didn't
they have
they?
a new guy. I can't remember his name. I want to say Will Dixon, but forgive me if I totally screwed up both the first and last names. But yeah, they
I
had
might
a
have seen
few.
him with them. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
I
been on,
saw
and
them
he's been
once.
on the Fireside sessions now too.
Okay, I saw them once like a couple years in my hometown. Kofi was in the hospital at the time, so they had like somebody subbing, and it might have been the same guy. I
Mm-hmm.
can't remember for sure though.
Mm-hmm.
He was awesome. Whoever he was though, he was great.
Oh yeah, they got great players. They're the best. They're I
They
love
are.
love Derek, like one of my heroes, and I feel like he's like a John Coltrane of our time. People are going to be talking about every single notes of
I
his
know.
solos.
I totally agree with you. Would that be in like one of like your top three maybe or something? Is that like a major one for you, Derek?
Derek, I'll put him as top one easily,
Wow,
just because
that's
of
a
the
man.
yeah the
What a
experiences
choice
I've
though.
had.
Yeah,
I've been to the when I was when I was 18, I was going to the Beacon and watching him and like Warren like set off fireworks, and I was like, that is cool.
yeah, that'll make somebody your favorite guitar player
Yeah,
very quickly,
totally.
especially at age 17.
Yeah.
Like whatever you hear right then is probably gonna stick with you the rest of your life. You know?
Yeah, totally. And he was
Yeah.
like 25. It all seemed just very I and
Yeah.
it took me into a crazy trip because of my love for Derek. I ended up like just becoming a crazed fan and ended up taking a job for like no pay just to hang out with Enrico Scott, the drummer of the Derek Trucks band. And I ended up
Yeah.
becoming very friendly with Enrico and playing some shows with him, and he became like a mentor to me, and that was all because I would just like kind of do anything to get closer to that whole scene. That's kind of been my whole trip ever since. That whole, like
Yeah.
watching those guys, I'm like, oh, I should start booking shows at where I'm at. And so it's been very cosmic for
Yeah.
me because it seems at some the duality of it is like we're talking here, it seems so far away, but like um but you've also shared the stage with like most of those people. I've met and worked with most of these people. A lot of them are our mutual
Yeah.
friends. It's like a
Yeah.
little
Yeah.
crazy still for me.
I've I've never gotten to meet Derek per se.
Mm.
Anytime I've had the opportunity to, I got too shy. Do you know
Oh
what I mean?
yeah, I get same with
Do you have
me.
that thing where when you meet somebody who you really look up to, or you have the chance to meet them,
Hmm.
you just want to give them the gift of leaving them alone, kind of?
Yes, absolutely. And
Every
spoken like a
time I've
true touring guitarist, because I'm sure people want a lot of your time on the road. Yeah, you
not as much
totally
as you
understand.
think, but yeah, and I'm sure you know the feeling too, man. But like,
Yes,
yeah,
but I
like
do understand that as a musician, and you really respect somebody as a guitarist. You're like, they're getting ready for a gig. Like I think that's totally
yeah,
wise. Is like I'm giving them
they're
the
either
gift of
getting
leaving
ready
them.
for a gig or they just finished a gig, and either
Yes.
one, I'm probably like, oh, he's tired, or oh, he's so focused right now. I don't want to bug him. You know?
Meanwhile, he's talking about fishing usually with buddies when like it's like, and he's very chill. Obviously, like he's been doing this for so long. But yeah, I'll talk
Yeah.
to his entire band, be as cool as I possibly can. Every time I see Derek, I'm like humming, humming, humming. You sounded great, and he's like, thanks. So,
That's the one thing I said. I was like, I was backstage at a Beacon show once, and I went over to like fill up my beer from the keg, and he was right there. And I just as I walked by, I was like, "Great show tonight," and he's like, "Thanks, man." And I was like, "Ha." You know?
Isn't that
That
amazing?
was
It's
as much as I could get out, you know.
yes,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing. But you've played with a lot of these like you've played with O'Teal, is that correct?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You've played with a lot of people just touring. I probably can't name half the amazing people that you've shared the stage with. Is there one or two people that you never thought that you'd meet or play like a solo with and you've been on stage with?
O'Teal's
O'Teal.
certainly one of those.
Sure.
And I did like two with him in Denver, where it's all improvised, you know.
Mhm.
And um, it was great, man. I mean, I got to stand right next to him, like just where the stage plot was. Like I was next to him all night, so I could kind of see his hands and
Soak it in a little bit.
yeah. Oh my god.
Funny.
So he was one, and I got to play with Dweezil Zappa once, and that was really cool.
Amazing.
Yeah, we played Cosmic Debris. I sat in with Zappa, plays Zappa.
Was he cool? Was he cool to
Yeah,
you? Cool.
he was cool. He's very quiet. He's very focused. Gets down to business.
Mm-hmm.
His band were like so sweet. Like, I remember like, I was nervous. It's like I don't want to screw this up, and like their bandmates were like, "You got any questions? You all right?" And I was like, "I'm good. I'm a little nervous, And they were like, "It's just a blues." Which Cosmic Debris is a blues. It really is.
Yeah, kind of, but it's
yeah.
not easy. That ain't no easy tune to play.
No. And they were like, just don't play any of the hard parts. Just like don't touch the strings when it gets to like any of the weird stuff. And I was like, I can do that.
Okay, yeah, roger that.
But yeah, it was great. And I'm kind of blanking on the other ones. I've sat in with Mo a couple of times, and those are really special to me because those were like one of the first kind of jam shows I ever saw.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Those guys are great too. And finally meeting Mo was never like top of my perspective, but playing a gig with Vinny, I was like, this is awesome. This is the kind of cosmic shit I'm talking about. You're like, you find yourself on stage with Vinny Amico, you're like, what?
Vinny and Al are how I met my girlfriend, actually.
Oh, really? Do tell.
Right when I moved to Burlington. Yeah. Right when I moved to Burlington, I was walking around downtown. Like, I didn't know where anything was yet. I was just kind of exploring,
Mm-hmm.
And I ran into like Al on the street, and I was like, "What are you doing here?" And he was like, "Yeah, Mo's playing at Higher Ground tonight." And I was like, "Cool." And he was like, "But me and Vinny are about to play this like little acoustic set at this like clothing and jewelry store because my friend Tara Lee Weathers. I don't know if you know Tara Lee.
Yeah, she doesn't know me, but I know of her.
A
Yeah.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, she had just written a book and she was like releasing it, and the kind of book release party was at Kari, my girlfriend's store. So I came to this store and played like a song with Vinny and Al, and it was at my now girlfriend's store.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So you must have nailed that song.
I played a Fleet Foxes cover. That'll do it every time.
Okay. Smart.
Yeah.
It was like between that or Creedence, and you went for the Fleet Foxes, and it's Happily Ever After.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, man.
Awesome. So so you're in Burlington now. You moved to Burlington a couple of years ago, right? How's it being a northerner? How's it being up in the mountains there?
It's awesome. It's so great. I actually live in Colchester now, but still
cool.
Pretty much Burlington.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just my speed, man. I tried the big city thing. I lived in Jersey for a few years. I lived in New York City for a few years. I lived in Boston for college for a few years. And it was great. I think it was important for me to be there when I was younger. And now that I'm a little bit older, I think it's like good for me to be somewhere that just makes me a happier person, you know? And Vermont does that, like, for sure. And there's incredible musicians here too. I've gotten to play with like such good musicians.
The scene there is amazing. Burlington is one of the coolest scenes, and it's a player's scene. You have to play. You have to be able to play.
Yeah, you do. But in a very mellow way that you would expect out of Burlington, like a high level of musicianship, but like, one thing I can think of that's a good example is like, if I ever tried to go to like an open, like straight ahead jazz jam in like Philly or New York or something, it was always the scariest thing in the world. And they have those here too, and the musicianship is amazing, but they're warm.
Mm.
If you're like a new guy and they kind of, they're just accommodate. Everybody's like cool to each other. It's great.
Yeah, I don't think they're coming from that strictly like Juilliard or Berkeley thing, and it's like kind of the jam band maybe flavor of it too. So maybe there's just a little more ease and sense of humor about the thing, and
could be, yeah. And at the same time, then there will be a bunch of musicians there who make you want to go home and practice too.
Sure.
because you need that too. Like it's a cool alchemy of like encouragement,
Yes.
but also kind of disarming. You know,
Definitely.
like everybody's sort of like nobody's really standoffish or anything.
Yeah. I
But,
felt
but
that way.
everybody plays at a level that makes you be like, oh man.
Yes, I felt that way at Dead
Go
Set.
home.
It was, they were very welcoming, and they were like, "Yeah, it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great." And
Yeah.
then with a gig or two in, I'm like, I got to go home and do more homework. So, yeah, but I love
Yeah.
Burlington for its. They let me in with open arms and just like, yeah, I do love it up there. It's cold. It's just so cold up there.
It is cold. It's warm today. It was warm. It was.
Right,
I
it's
went for a
beautiful
walk in the
today.
park. I live right next to a state park, so I can go walk endlessly in the woods. But I didn't even
nice.
need a jacket today. That's saying a lot for March in Burlington.
That's
you
true.
don't typically, we don't get a day like this for a couple more weeks at least. So
That's true. So are you a Vermont man now? Are you going to stay in Vermont long term?
I'm here, man. We just bought a house. You're looking at my house. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm here, man.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. But yeah, to cope with the winter stuff, Kari, my girlfriend, got me into skiing. She taught me how to ski. So now the winter goes by a lot faster. I'm
Watch
actually
your
kind of sad
wrists.
when the snow starts. I know. That's why I don't snowboard. Because you
Okay.
fall on your wrists when you snowboard, but when you ski, you kind of just like sort of fall on your side, you know?
Okay, you
I'm
can
good.
break a hip.
I'll
Well,
be
you're okay. Well, I'll allow you to
I
break a
really,
hip for a knee.
that's my mentality is like, break a leg, it's fine. I can deal. But anything happens in my hands, it's bad.
It's bad.
You know?
You need your hands, Rob. So what's going on? I want to know what's going on for the future. You know, you said you're chomping at the bit to get stuff going. I'm excited to hear of people that are experimenting in different ways for this summer. Does Dopapod have stuff lined up?
Yeah, I
Heard a
don't know what I'm
couple-
allowed to talk about, but
Okay. You can talk about anything here. It's just
okay.
me and you.
Well, there's certainly. I mean, we're starting to announce stuff. We announced Workout in Ohio today. Did you ever play the Workout?
I've been there, or I've been to that Thornville thing where they're Legend
Yeah.
Valley or whatever. Yeah, that.
Legend Valley.
Mhm.
Which is just, man, it's one of those places that I remember thinking about during this whole pandemic thing of being like, I wonder if I'll ever even get to go back there. Like that specific place, I remember thinking that, and we're gonna go back.
That's great news.
You know, at this point, you're probably like this too, where I think we've all trained ourselves to like, when someone's like, you got a gig, it's next month, I'll be like, I'll believe it when I'm on the stage playing.
Yeah.
You know? So,
Yep.
but I'm allowing myself to be a little more confident about it than I would have been 6 months ago or something, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, that and we're playing the Birds of a Feather Festival down in Kentucky, and there's a bunch more that just aren't announced yet, but we're tentatively going to do well, I shouldn't say tentatively. Summer camp is slated to happen in August.
Okay.
I just say everything is tentative right now. You know,
That's
what I
fine.
mean?
Then you can't get in trouble
Yeah.
for saying anything on here.
Yes,
so nobody
exactly.
knows what it's all jumbled up. Music, but one of the things that I really wanted to ask you personally about has just popped into my head.
Okay.
And I hope you are as excited as I am because I've been bringing this up the last couple episodes. But it is the Barry Harris diminished.
I know what you're about to talk about.
Diminished
Everyone's
sixth
talking
scale.
about this thing right now, man.
And O'Teal was talking about on Krasno's thing. I discovered it.
Yeah.
I missed a guitar lesson. I had a guitar lesson scheduled for 7, and I was so deep into a Barry Harris lesson on YouTube that I completely I was like, I'm so sorry. We'll have to reschedule.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to.
Oh man.
What? Yeah. Yep.
No,
You
you go. You go.
Well, I didn't even really ask a question, but I just wanted to know if you're stoked on it. Are you using it? I want to. Usually, we kind of end the show with a couple of theory tips or something like that, and this is hopefully just a precursor to that. I know that you've been thinking about it. Josh Weinstein told me to make sure that I talked with you about it for just a minute or two.
Well, I'm still. I mean, I get it. I like at least kind of like I get the basic DNA of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not really like, you know what I mean, where you understand like the notes in a scale and stuff and the chords that it generates, and
Mm-hmm.
then you spend the next like 2 years trying to like get vocabulary
Mm-hmm.
with it, like have stuff to say with it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't really have a lot to like say with it right now, but it's so cool, you know.
I'm looking forward to when you do have something to say with it, because I know if
play
there's
it a little bit.
anybody, if you want to, I don't know if we can get the guitar all hooked up.
Yeah, you. Maybe
Yeah,
you'll
okay,
hear a
go
little
ahead. I
blinking
want
through the microphone here.
if I'd
Hold
love
on.
to hear it. Bob's gonna go get his guitar. Check out this. For those that are listening, I've been talking about this for a couple weeks, and it's just kind of an amazing way to look at harmony. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear this? Can you
Yeah.
hear that at all?
Yeah, but it's coming in and out a little bit. Yeah, okay, that's good. We're in.
Is it
baby.
worth it at all, or should I just talk about it and not try
Yeah,
to
play
it?
for a minute. Who cares?
Okay, so Eli is obsessed with this thing right now.
It's
It's
okay.
Just the it's everything to him right now. So a normal major scale is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, right?
Mm.
And then this scale, you already know this stuff, but I'm
And for,
saying this
please,
for somebody
the
out
whole
there who
whole
doesn't.
point is for
So,
to
but in
learn.
between the 5th and the 6th scale degrees, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, there's a flatted 6th as well. So,
Mhm.
which basically I can't do it on guitar, but the cool thing initially about it on piano is that it makes it so like, you ever hear a piano player like play a scale, but they do it with both hands and the scale goes in opposite directions in each
Yes.
hand? Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So when you do that with a regular major scale, like some intervals when like one hand's going up and the other's going down, some intervals sound really good and then other ones not so good.
Mm.
And by you're
Okay, now I see you. So basically, we left off with not all the intervals sound right when you go up with one, down with one. But if you add in the minor sixth, you end up getting all sorts of these kind of pretty harmonies. But I'm wondering if we're lagging out still.
I still can't see it too well.
Mm,
There you are.
Okay,
There you are.
I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here. I'm here.
Well, anyways,
But yeah, basically
The
where we
way-
left off was when you add the minor six into these kind of things, and you're playing even just like thirds or whatever different intervals, they end up just sounding hipper. They just sound like much more interesting. They don't kind of sound
sounds like an old band, sounds like the Cotton Club, like Duke Ellington, Count Basie stuff. you know?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the
And-
cool thing about it is that like the diatonic chords in a major scale are like major 7, 2 minor 7, 3 minor 7, blah blah blah. When you add that one note, everything becomes either a major 6 chord, a diminished 7th chord, or an inversion of one of those two chords. So it's really the entire scale, the chords that it affords you just by the DNA of the scale being put together in stacks of, what I guess with conventional scale the third, but this puts all that out, flips
Mhm.
it upside down in a sense.
Oh,
Everything is
I'm happy to hear that Eli and you, or that at least Eli is very into this, or that it means everything, because the
I'm into it too.
implications-
But he has more to say with it right now.
Okay.
He's been shedding it more than me.
Time will tell.
So every chord ends up being C major 6, D diminished 7th, then C major 6 in first inversion,
Mm-hmm.
then F diminished 7th, which is still just an inversion of D diminished 7th.
Mm-hmm.
So then everything is just those two chords inverted.
It's beautiful. It's like for me, it was just a lot of things make a lot of sense under that,
Yeah.
and it's all music theory. You can think about this in so many different ways, but as far as hipping me to that language and understanding when you're listening to jazz and you're hearing all these kind of different like tensions, and you don't understand maybe the system where it's coming from. I mean, obviously it's way more it's more complicated than that, but when you
Yeah.
listen to how Barry Harris explains it, it's very simple. He can kind of see logically
Yeah.
where these voicings are coming from, and I love that he's even talking smack about like Bud Powell. You know, he's like, didn't Bud
I
Powell
haven't
even
actually
do it?"
watched the video of him talking about it. But
So good. He's like, nah,
good.
Bud didn't even do it like that. He did it small like this. Like he's just so great because he knew all these cats.
Yeah, and like within a major scale, like a diminished chord is really still just a dominant chord, but with a flat 9 in it. You know, so
Let's say
like,
that again. Say that again slowly.
well, like check this out.
Diminished
Like
chord.
one of the diminished chords that would like fit in that tapestry of like D diminished, sliding up to F diminished, sliding up to G sharp diminished, sliding up to B diminished. Like that's all the same chord. You just don't have to change your fingerings, right?
Yes.
But like for example, take this position where I'm starting on A flat. Like that's really just a G7 chord where I put my middle finger down on an A flat. Nothing else in the chord changed. That's still just a G7, but that A flat would be its flat 9. So every chord is right. So
right. That's yes. Okay, and I do. Yes, that is a big part of that, and that's who he's talking about. Schoenberg was actually the one who first kind of said take any diminished chord and drop a note.
If you drop a note, it becomes a dominant chord.
Dominant chord.
Yeah. If you lower any note in a fully diminished chord a half step, it becomes a dominant 7th chord. So there's only like 2 chords in the entire thing. Everything is either like, I mean, that's a diminished chord, but that's still kind of just a G7 chord if we're in the key of C. So everything is just
it's like a 1 5 1 5 1 5 1. Takes out the 2, takes out everything. Yeah.
The other thing that I really want to, I'm really interested in that on a composing level, because with that, thinking about that tool that every diminished chord could become a dominant chord.
Yep.
Like a dominant chord is essentially that's like to me, dominant chords are portals to new keys because every dominant chord is a 5 chord to some 1 chord.
Sure.
You know? So I'm really interested in that because that means I could get to any key I want from anywhere. It's limitless. Like there's no key that you can't get to. And then the other thing that's neat that actually one of my students showed me, which isn't aligned with this kind of diminished turning into dominant chords that we just talked about, is that with augmented chords, if you raise any note in an augmented triad up a half step, it becomes a minor chord. And if you lower any note in an augmented chord by a half step, it becomes a major triad.
Okay, I like that too.
And augmented chords are basically just like really snazzy sounding 5 chords too. Like Oh Darling by the Beatles. Oh darling.
Sure. Yeah, it wants to go to the
like that
A
E
so
augmented chord that it starts with, that's just a 5 chord.
Mm-hmm.
That's really just if you like, it's just a 5 chord with like a flat 13 in it. Same thing as a sharp 5. And so then that too is another portal for dominant chords to get into new keys. I just haven't really tried to write anything with it yet.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, I was teaching a lesson right before we did this too. I love it.
Oh, cool.
I was teaching long before there was a pandemic. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been teaching pretty regularly as long as I wasn't on the road.
Right. So how do you keep
it? I would do it.
That's what it's saying. Like, how do you keep a schedule? I mean, maybe if you're doing Skype or on the road, but it must be tough to keep any sort of normal schedule.
No, when it was on the road, I didn't really. I kind of like if anybody wanted one, I pretty much the usual thing was I was like, oh, we just got to see the day of because I never know like if we're gonna be late or if sound check's gonna run over.
Yep.
So I didn't teach on the road that often. I would kind of like wait until there was a break in the tour. But it was still like pretty like, I always wanted to teach more. I like teaching a lot. But then through all of this stuff, I really had to like commit to it. Like I really the past year I've thought of myself as a guitar teacher first and anything else second. You know? That's what I do with
most of your time.
Most of my time, And if I'm not doing that, I'm practicing guitar, which is still just preparing to teach it. Like you're still just learning stuff that you're probably going to explain to somebody else someday, anyways.
Yeah, but what I love about teaching is
and-
just clarifying it in language for students too. Having a body of like having something in your head is different than trying to explain it to somebody, which I've learned with every student. But it actually makes
I remember
you
like
learn more.
Yeah, I remember learning this like kind of like really kind of dense practice routine when I was I was just out of college. But I took a lesson with like a Berkeley professor that I knew kind of on the side. And he showed me this like system of practicing intervals in all the scales, like this like extremely labor intensive system to like master like interval exercises in every key and every mode and everything. And one of the things he said was like, it's not really going to make sense to you until you teach somebody else how to do it. Like you're going to work on it for like a couple years and you're going to be like, I think I get it. And then you're going to teach it to somebody else and you're going to be like, oh, like
Okay.
that's
Is that
exactly what
true?
you're talking about, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. And like, once you like put it into words, it becomes kind of real. It's not this
Totally.
like, it's not this like garbage in your head anymore that's like abstract,
Yes. Yeah.
It's crazy how that works, And you kind of like, granted, everything gets explained a little differently because every human being that's in front of you for a lesson is different, right? Like
Yeah.
you got to
Yeah.
explain everything a little bit differently, but you kind of start to like get in a rhythm with how you explain certain things.
Yeah.
And you over time you find like what's typically the easiest way to explain something, and then if somebody's like that still doesn't make sense to me, then you find like another tailored way for them.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like,
I notice a lot
yeah.
with teaching somebody guitar, like people have like ideas here and here, and it's like, oh, I just got to show you, like these are actually very close. These two ideas are actually very close,
Yeah.
and you've been
Yeah.
maybe searching for a long time. Like, let me just kind of fill in this last thing for you. So that's and it's different for everybody.
Sometimes a lot of it is just sometimes I feel like teaching a lot of it is just putting a name to something somebody does all the time. Like every guitar player uses the Dorian scale before they even know what it actually is.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, because it kind of looks like a pentatonic scale, but it has those couple of notes in it that, like, when you were 13, you were like, man, these notes sound cool. I know they're not in the little shape that my teacher showed me, but they sound pretty great.
Right, but I'm going to use these.
And then years later, somebody's like, that's the Dorian scale, which is really just a major scale. And then you're like, oh,
Right. Yeah.
And if you know enough, like, harmony and stuff, you kind of realize that a lot of stuff is the same stuff over and over again, but repurposed, you know?
Yes, absolutely. And I love getting to those aha moments with students where they've like been thinking, they've been like belaboring, some sort of, like the Dorian mode, and like they finally realize that the Dorian mode is just a major scale started on the second scale degree, and they're like, it's like earth shaking. Or, for somebody,
they're almost mad.
It's mad. Yeah, it's like,
they're almost mad about it. They're like, it's like in Dumb and Dumber when he's like, you've had this extra pair of gloves this whole time.
Yeah. Yeah, take my extra pair, right. My hands are getting sweaty.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, that's all that it is.
Yes, totally.
Yeah. But I love teaching, man. It really it's a much different gratification than like being on stage and playing for people. It's a much more like humble one.
Yeah.
Like you're helping somebody else get better at something. It's not about you, but you feel just as good afterwards. It feels like you did something worthwhile,
Yeah, agreed.
Like,
I think that's a very good way to look at it.
No, I get like I get a good feeling from teaching. It's like it's not something I would like. I think even ever stop doing, even if I got the chance where I could. I think I'd probably still do it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I didn't know that you were teaching for so long, but that's great. I mean, and it's just great to have somebody like you. I think that, you've been playing enough shows and have been playing, in this kind of, in the Dopapod outfit for so long, where you do, one thing is you have a signature sound. You might not think that way. I think a lot of people might not know that they have a very signature sound, but like, I can tell when it's you playing, especially in Dopapod. There's no other guitarist that can. And also somebody that's just knowledgeable, knows the language, and just like a chill guy to be around. That three kind of combo doesn't happen all the time. So it's important. It's important that we have you, Rob.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
I appreciate
I was
it.
curious.
Yeah, go ahead.
With you talking about all these guitar players teaching lessons, who would you want to take a lesson with right now?
That's a good question. Who would I want to take a lesson with right now? Well, I subscribe to Lyle Brewer's Patreon. So Lyle Brewer is already a teacher of mine. He doesn't know it, but I stalk him or whatever.
Yeah,
He knows it. When
I subscribe to Lyle's Patreon too.
yeah, and so he always has really, just really great tips and good ways of thinking about it. I learned the Tennessee Waltz from him, and like a good teacher. And I think I get this from Lyle. When you learn one thing, you can learn 5,000 things. It's like a very Zen thing to look at it. But when you get to, and so a lot of the times he's very good at kind of putting forth an idea where I'm like, oh shit, I can kind of see where I can add this to my vocabulary. But as far as like famous guitarists, I don't know. Who would I just want? I mean, mostly I just want to talk to people because a lot of that's kind of why I've been, super excited about doing this and just kind of picking people's brains. But yeah, I don't know. There's a lot. I'd take a lesson from Derek any day and just kind of, I'd love to pick his brain just about what he's thinking about and, just a little more insight than something that you might just be able to glean from just watching him play.
Yeah. I think I would want to talk to somebody about like writing more than I'd want to talk to somebody about guitar playing.
Did I tell you about the book that I love so much about songwriting? I think I have, because there was a time I might have like messaged you randomly drunk, but there's a book. Hold on, I'm going to get it right now.
Please.
I tend to do that, especially when I haven't talked to people in a while. I get super excited about a music thing. I reached out to Ron Holloway from the Susan Tedeschi band. You know Ron?
Oh, I love him.
Yeah, so he works with
He's
with
one of the
Melvin.
only he's one of the only sit-inners we've ever had where he didn't ask to sit in. He just walked on stage and started playing. And I think he might be the only guy who could get away with that.
Ron
typically that is not something
that.
we would typically that would be something we would not be happy about.
Right.
But we were like, that was the most awesome thing ever.
That's Ron.
And
I called him up. And asked him about the Barry Harris scales. I was like, what do you know about the Barry Harris scales?
And he just has all these great stories about like my heroes. Like
Totally.
I'll be like, did you know Cannonball Adderley? And he was like, yeah. And
He's like, that guy owes me $20.
I feel like Chris Farley. He'd be like, yeah, I know Cannonball Adderley. And I'm like, cool.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, that's awesome.
What was he like? Yeah.
Totally. So this is the book real quick. I think I might have told you about it, but this actually helped me so much with my songwriting, just like for inspiration purposes. Tunesmith by Jimmy Webb. And it's like Inside the Art of Songwriting. I actually have 2 copies just because I love it so much. But basically, what the whole book is, Jimmy Webb wrote Wichita Lineman and a bunch of other these like classic American songs, and was just like a pop writer when he was very young. Got a bunch of Grammys when he was very young. One of those guys that was just writing a bunch for himself and for other people. And in this book, he basically writes a song with you. He talks a little bit about his history, but he talks exactly how to write a song, like from soup to nuts, how he thinks about it in all these different ways, from the lyrics to arranging things, like to talking about like walking into a bigger room when you go into a chorus is very kind of cool. He talks about like little rooms and bigger rooms kind of and those kind of dynamics.
That's the kind of thing I need, man.
Well, this is just a really good one. So it's not, this is just a really, really, really great book. I recommend it to anybody. But yeah, I think you're totally right. Talking with somebody about songwriting, it almost seems like the most mysterious craft of all.
Yeah, and that can be a letdown because when I have studied with some people in the past and I ask them about writing, they don't have like a lot of people are like, I don't know, every song is different, man.
Because it's weird, and that's why a lot of people are just saying like, it comes from somewhere else, or like I'm a channel through it, because it really does start to touch on that kind of thing. When you never think you could, for at least in my experience, I never think I could write any of the songs that I've ever put out ever. But then they're just there all of a sudden, and they're their own thing. You're like, oh, dope! I have no idea.
And a lot of it is like, I feel like a lot of people, myself included, don't want to hear this. But a lot of it's just like brute force. Like you just have to work really, really
Yep.
hard.
Yes, sir.
Like you got to write every day and write like a bunch of songs that aren't that great, but you're just like really staying sharp.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I mean he talks about Jimmy Webb talks
Yeah.
about this. Beck talks about writing the 20 songs to get the one good one. There's a lot of people that I think do that too, and I've had the same experience because when I was finally home and I was sitting there off of tour and the pandemic was in full swing, you know, when it really just started, that remained very true. It was just like, okay, here's my time to get some songs done, and I can
Yeah.
either get it done or I can do the good old Daniel Mark Sternstein and not get it done. And I was like, oh, damn it. And so I did it. And it felt, you know, it was labor intensive and it was crazy. And I had days where I wanted to smash the whole thing, but I'm so glad that it's out now. And just, you know, I don't know where it came from either. Oh, it feels so great. It feels so great.
I really need to like make some active steps to make another solo album. Like I have a bunch of songs, you know, it's just, you know, it's big. It's always a big commitment to be like, whew, I'm going to do this again.
Right.
You know?
And you want it to be good
So
and it's
much
got to
work.
be,
Yeah.
it's a lot that goes into it.
It's also hard to balance, like if you want to be like really good at your instrument too, like it's, you know, it's kind of like there's only so many hours in the day that you're awake and doing stuff.
Right.
So
totally.
sometimes it's like I have to like decide one or the other. Sometimes like do I want to work on guitar today or do I want to write songs today? Because I mean you could write stuff that effectively like is challenging and makes you better at your instrument too.
Sure.
But
yeah, but it's a different
there's
art.
no guarantees that that's the kind of stuff that's going to come out of you either. You know.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. But that's what, like you said, you have to just put in the work and do it.
Yeah, I got really good writing advice from Wayne Krantz when I studied with him too.
I would love to hear this.
It was really simple advice, man. Like it was advice that, you know, even people who don't play instruments would be like, that makes a lot of sense, you know? Like seemingly obvious, you know? But like he was like, well, you know, you have to have, if it's instrumental, your A section and your B section have to have some sort of contrast because people love lyrics, and if those lyrics aren't there, like if you have lyrics, you can have your A section and B section be the same exact chord progression, no problem. Just have a different melody,
Sure.
you know. But with guitar, or like in any instrumental music in general, there has to be something. There has to be like a yin to something's yang. So he was like, so you're. Like if your A section's in the lower register, your B section's got to be in a higher register. Like you know, and you know, people already kind of instinctively do that in even the most basic songwriting by just like the chorus will go to the relative minor. Do you know what I mean?
Sure.
Like the verse will be in C major and the chorus will be in A minor, or vice versa.
Sure. That sounds deceptively simple coming from Wayne. I would want Wayne to tell me something more than make your A section and B section different, but it's very,
yeah, of course,
but it's very powerful.
I know it's obvious, but then he was also like, and also if you come up with an idea, just remember that that idea doesn't necessarily have to be the first thing that happens in the song, like, which I was like, that's a good point. You know, you always come up with an idea and you're like, okay, I'm gonna write this song. And then he actually had me like write a B. I showed him like a tune I was working on, and he was like, okay, well, go write a B section this week and then show it to me next week. And I wrote this B section that like it contrasted my A section so much that I didn't even keep it. But I liked the section on its own so much that I wrote an entire song around it so that that section had somewhere to live.
That's great.
And that section isn't even like, it's like a random kind of instrumental little journey that it sounds like I'm playing with a variation from like the main riff of the song, when in actuality the main riff of the song was written afterwards to make the middle part seem coherent, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Did you record that song? Is that a song on your solo record that you're talking about? This little B section,
it's called
instrumental
High
section?
Doggies, the song. It's like a
cool
kind of it's like one of the heavier tunes on the album. But that's from an assignment with Wayne. And then the other thing, which was just obvious, was like he he just said that none of this is going to be Mozart. You just need to make a decision and finish the song so that you can move on to the next song.
I love Wayne
Isn't that great?
already. This is, but that's the thing. That's the thing that you find is like you meet your heroes and they're telling you like kind of stuff that
They're just
some of the
reaffirming stuff
is
you already know.
exactly. It's exactly that's what I was saying, and that is what is really so sagely because you're like, oh, like I do get it.
Yeah.
I do get it. I
'Cause
just
I was
gotta
al-
push.
Yeah, because I was always like, am I supposed to spend like I couldn't decide. I was like, am I supposed to be like so unbelievably meticulous and like spend a year writing a song and not being able to decide if I want to have a C chord or an F chord?
Right.
And he was like, just get it done. I think sometimes that is the case. Like Dopapod has some songs that took like a year to write. There's definitely been a thing for us in the past.
Wow.
You know. But you know, we also maybe we could have written like sometimes you know what I mean, where like it's almost you feel like you have to decide like, do I want to have like 10 okay songs or like 2 just like excellent songs?
And I
You know?
yeah, it's true. I think the
Yeah.
2 excellent ones
But then again,
are,
they're just
are what
they
to
might
go
just be
for.
excellent to you. You might have worked your ass off on it,
And then you only
like,
have 2
you showed your
songs.
fans. Yeah, but your fans are like, yeah, it's all right, you know, and you're like, oh, I worked so hard on that.
And they're like, play Freight Train again.
yeah,
And you're like,
"God, we
damn
wrote
it,
that
we've been
we
writing
wrote
this
that in
for
like
a year."
15 minutes. Yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Dude.
you know.
Well, thank you so much for being on here, dude. I so appreciate it. This was so fun to talk to you.
It was fun to talk to you too, man. I hope I can see you soon. Like, I miss seeing you play at Nectar's so much, man. It was just like some of the best times of my life, you know.
I know Nectar's is a very cool spot, like very welcoming, very warm. We've
Yeah.
had some really fun shows there. I'm coming up on I think 420. We're doing the rooftop at Nectar's. I'm gonna do a dead set. So like
Ooh.
yeah, so we'll be up there making noise. You might hear us over in Colchester, considering how loud we play some nights.
Man, I'll be there, man.
Okay, yeah,
I'll come
that would
hang
be great.
out, man. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I'm doing that, and I'm going to announce a couple more shows. And yeah, I'm just trying to also play this original music. I have a couple of guys in the Hudson Valley, and like doing some trio stuff and some weird stuff. So I'll be playing.
Excellent.
And I hope to just keep doing this thing too. This has become just like a project that's a part of my life right now. Like I was telling you before, these are kind of my Alan Lomax field recordings. I just really want to archive these conversations, give this insight to people. It's stuff that I think is shrouded in mystery sometimes, and
Yeah.
people want the access to that, and we're in a very unique position. And so yeah, since this pandemic, I feel a responsibility to people coming up, to the music industry, to this whole cosmic trip that I've been on, to just record some of this for the sake of just having it down, and hopefully some people can listen to it, enjoy it, learn from it. So thank you so much for your time and talents, Rob. You're the best. I wish you many good things in the future. I'm excited for Dopapod to come back, and that's it. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, man.
All right, thanks guys for tuning in to Dimmer, the last bastion of truth in the music industry. If something is good, I will tell you that it is good. If something is bad, and I tell you it is bad, you can trust me. It's probably not that good. It's probably a little bit bad. Thank you for tuning in to Dimmer, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.